What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back with another video. I've got Sim, my brother, with me. They're still a bit salty from last week, but how you doing?
Salty, I'm over it now. Whatever. John's the champion of all the Spurs fans. Well done.
Do you know what?
I still want my
Thank you,
rematch.
man.
I still want my rematch.
That's all right. We'll have it. I felt like I was repping the other day for We Are Tottenham TV, so I'm glad I did us justice.
All right, fair enough.
We got John here. Nobody actually knows about the quiz yet. That's going to come out tomorrow night, but you'll see John in all his glory against another Johnny. It was actually a really good quiz. So check that out.
John on John.
Right? But the video we're going to give to you today is the 5 best Spurs players in our lifetime. So we're going to have a bit of discussion. John, you want to get us underway?
So I'm going to show up. I'll show mine on the screen, and you might want to flash the graphics up if you want to, right? But these are my top 5 in order.
Was I supposed to select the top 5?
Gaza, Bale.
You can be doing that now if you want. Yeah. So my top. Do you want me to commentate as I hold it up?
Go on.
All right. So I'm going to commentate on these. So number 1, I've got Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, he's the most influential player that I've seen play on the pitch. Drove us to the FA Cup final almost single-handedly. I don't think I've seen a player as influential as him. He obviously scored in every round of the FA Cup. He was just, when he first arrived, he was an absolute beast in the late 80s. People were talking about him as the new George Best.
Shame he didn't stay for that long.
He didn't stay for that long, but the reason also why I've got him top is that he did it at international level and he did it in the big games, There's other players that I've got on this list that they're great players, but they didn't quite perform on the highest stage constantly, For me, Gascoigne was just legendary. He's actually probably the best English player that we've, the last great English player that we've had, in my opinion. I think he's better than all the what do they call it? The golden era of English footballers. Yeah. I think he's better than all of them, to be honest with you. Because he did it at international level. The Gerrards, the Lampards, they didn't, and the Scots.
He didn't do it for as long, though.
A lot of people call him the most technically gifted English player of all time. So
I think that could be right, I mean, Hoddle as well, but I don't think Hoddle did it really at international level. He didn't really get a chance at international level. I think Gaza, admittedly, he got that injury and it kind of killed off his career a little bit. But I still think even in that short amount of time, the 3 years or so, I mean, he was unbelievable. And I don't know if you guys remember any bits of him, but you probably remember from replays and stuff, or at least.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of replays, but it was just a bit before my time because that 91 Cup run when we won the Cup that year, I was about 1 or 2 years old, so
right. Yeah.
Just a bit before my time, 3 years old. But
wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, Simeon wasn't even born yet, and then he left. So just a bit before my time.
I think he's probably our best free kick taker of all time at Spurs. Just the way that he was just like built like a brick, but he had like the feet of a ballerina, and just the way he could dance in between players. So, I mean, it's just brilliant. I mean, the only downside I'd say with Gazza, he could be a little bit selfish. Lineker used to say he was his one downside was he's a little bit too selfish, but I don't care about that, to be honest with you.
I think with Gazza, like his greatest strength, I think ultimately was his greatest weakness as well. In terms of he was always full throttle, going 100 the whole game. He never ever stopped. He was the kind of, obviously I've seen only from clips and whatever I've seen, but from what you can see, he's one of those players who starts at 100 and never slows down. And that ultimately was his undoing with that injury.
Exactly. He was on the pitch like he was in the pub.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he was channeling. Yeah, sorry, go on, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying that ultimately that's what cost him his injury. Constantly flying into tackles, constantly being all over the place, never resting for one moment, and that was his biggest strength on the pitch, but also turned out to be his biggest weakness. And the fact that he was like that as well made it harder for him to recover when he did get back from that injury. And when he was going 100, he just wasn't the same as he used to be before. So that probably had a big mental effect on him.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to go through the rest of the list, or do you want to go? How do you want to do this? Do you want to go to your top?
Let's go one each. So, Sim, you go your top first.
Who's your top?
My number 1, my best ever.
The thing is, it's very hard to put it in
top
in
5.
1 to 5 order. Like I can give
know.
you a top 5 or top 6 players who I've seen in my lifetime, but I don't think I can give you the actual.
You got to try, baby.
It's
You got to try.
so difficult. It really
I know
is.
it is.
If I was to go for a top 5, I'd have it written out in front of me, but I've got a 5 in my head, not in specific order. But what are we doing? One each, or are we doing?
Go on, John's given
5?
us his 5, so you give us your 5.
So okay, so for me at number 5, I'll go Robbie Keane. At number 4,
Robbie Keane, your top 5 in your lifetime.
Yeah,
wow,
I loved Robbie Keane. I think he would make it. Is it favourite or you're the best?
No, the greatest.
The greatest.
Not my favourite.
Start with the top though. We'll just do your number 1 and then we'll work our way down.
Okay, for me, I think the best of my lifetime has been Harry Kane, for sure. I think
for stats alone.
For stats, for the player he is, for the longevity he's been able to do that as well, for the qualities he's proven, for the story as well. I think he has the whole package. Harry Kane, international level, golden boots. This is an elite level striker, and and one that we're blessed to have leading our line. I think he's been the best Spurs player, one who's stepped up so many times for us, who's been able to play at big games in big tournaments as well. I think he's the best player I think I've seen at Spurs for me during my lifetime. Number 2, I think Gareth Bale. Obviously, we all know how good he's been at Spurs.
He turned on a switch like that, literally. Get the ball, literally just turn games like that. Just run down that left-hand side, ping it in from anywhere that guy could do.
He's something was going to happen as soon as Bale got the ball. And it was a shame it took him so long to really realise his potential. But once he exploded on the scene, there was absolutely no stopping him. It was just an upward trajectory. And it was only a matter of time when the big club starts circulating. The only thing with Gareth Bale was I think he had that one massive season when just before he left, and I think the other seasons he didn't quite have the consistency as he did in that season. But on the season just before that actually got him his move to Madrid, he really showed he was one of the best players in Europe. And I think for that season alone, he gets number 2. Number 3, I think would have to be Luka Modric. I think he makes it in that central midfield role. Number 4, I would say I think best ever top 5 players I've seen at Spurs. I think Ledley King probably gets in there. And number 4, I think he's still now underrated by most people in the football world. I think how good he was back then, especially given the fact most of his time at Tottenham he was playing around such rubbish, and he was defending the goal by himself a lot of the time. He was just so good. His ability, his ball playing ability at centre back, it was one of my favourites.
With Ledley King, he made everyone around him and all his centre-back partners much better. I just remember Dawson, every time he wasn't alongside Ledley King, he was rubbish. Well, not say rubbish, but he was nowhere near as good as when he was alongside Ledley King. If Ledley King didn't have his knee problems, would he be the best Tottenham player in our lifetime?
I think there'd be a case for it. I think he would have been up. You would have put him in the same bracket as like Rio Ferdinand and John Terry and them centre backs. If it wasn't for the injury, I think quality-wise he was.
John Terry, and he only had one knee.
Exactly.
He was definitely better than John Terry at his best, I think, in my opinion. But we never really saw it because of the injuries and stuff like that. But I don't think even a fully fit Ledley King wouldn't get in my top 5 of all.
Really?
That I've seen. No way, not a chance. I mean, he's not getting ahead of Bale.
But would any defenders get in your top 5?
No, I'm not putting any defenders in. Maybe that's just because I'm attracted to the the panache players, the flair players, and that's just how I am. But for me, he doesn't fit in my top 5. I mean, Kane's number 5 for me. Kane's number 5 for me because I don't think he's better than Klinsmann. I think Klinsmann did it at the very highest level. He's more athletic. He scored about 20. I think he scored 29 goals with Sheringham, and he split those goals with Sheringham. Kane's very selfish in front of goal, which is good and bad. But he never lays it off. He's always trying to get the goal himself. Whereas Klinsmann and Sheringham, they were constantly feeding off each other. Letting the other one score. He had more to his game. He's more acrobatic as well. More agile, more I think he was absolutely the best striker in the world at that point, and I don't think you can say that quite about Kane. I think he's up there, but I don't think he's.
I think for a time, I think in that year in 2017, where he broke all the records, I think he was the best striker in the world at that time. I think, and also I think you sell him short when you say he doesn't always. He's a bit selfish. He is selfish. I think all good strikers are selfish. You can't tell me Lineker wasn't selfish, but I think he does have a pass on him. I think his passing ability is extremely underrated. I think
that's from deep though. That's from deep. But when he's actually in the penalty area, it's not very often that he lays it off. Someone like Keane would lay it off. Someone like Sheringham would lay it off. Like these are the sorts of players that would lay that pass off from deep. Yeah, he sets up play and he's got a great pass on him, stuff like that. But I think in the area, he's, if he gets half a chance, he's taking that chance. Whereas other strikers that we've had. Plus, I'd also say that, he had that 2017 season. Klinsmann did it for like 15 years. That's the difference. And he won World Cups.
Yeah, but are we talking about in a Spurs shirt or just in general?
Well, yeah, I know. I understand that. But, that we had him at his best, basically, Klinsmann, because he had just won the World Cup. So for me, even that one season, you saw like probably the best striker. I think that's the best striker that we've seen since Jimmy Greaves. It's
a very big statement. It really is.
Yeah.
Harry Kane's numbers, it's very hard to top that. Very hard.
Yeah.
They're quite frankly ridiculous. And I think he's also done it on big stages, and he's done it for many years at Spurs.
So for the longevity, I can see the argument for Kane for longevity, but I've also seen him, he peaked in 2017, and because of the injuries, if you look at his stats, they're coming down, games to goal ratio.
There's an argument to say that's the whole team, not just Harry Kane as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that as well. But I do think he's slowed down a little bit after his injuries because he has one big injury every year, and I have noticed that has slowed him down a little bit. But yeah, no, I mean, trust me, being in the top 5 is still pretty damn good when you see the caliber of other players, that we've had. And
also, on Klinsmann's point, he did it in a much worse team as well, and much worse than Harry Kane's worst team.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, that team was absolutely exciting, though, in 94 when he had Barmby, Sheringham, Anderton, Klinsmann, Dimitrescu, Exactly, yeah. I mean, that was a fantastic season to watch that one.
Well, when Kane broke through, it wasn't the best team.
When it was nowhere near struggling for relegation and stuff like that.
No, yeah. But, yeah, fair enough. We did have Fazio at the back. But
let me go through my top 5.
Yeah, go through yours.
I didn't give my number 5.
Oh, go on. So you got Kane, Bale,
Modric, Ledley King, and I think the 5th player. I think the best player. I think for me was Berbatov. Would be a number 5. I think
I had him down as well.
I think he'll be my number 5. I think the class he showed. I know it was only for 2 years, but it was unbelievable. The technical ability, his first touch, I think, is the best the Premier League's ever seen, in my opinion. The Berbatov first touch, the range of goals, his assists, the link he had with Robbie Keane. He obviously went on to win the Golden Boot with Man United when he moved there, and he won a couple of Premier Leagues. But I think the time he showed at Spurs, he was one of the best strikers in the Premier League at that time. And I think for technical ability, there's very few players who beat him. There really are.
So you're not having Ginola's not in your top 5 at all?
But the thing is, obviously, I know Ginola's an amazing player, but he was a bit before my time. I was a bit young when Ginola was starting the team. For me, it's like I only properly I can gain the knowledge and a foresight into how good a player was from about 2002. That's when I properly started following football and really started paying attention. So that's that's for me where it comes from. So before then, I see highlights, but I never actually watched games properly.
Berbatov was just insane when he came to us. I think pretty much he hit the ground running when he came. I think his first goal was against Besiktas, was it? When he took it round that keeper. Was that his first goal, Sim?
It wasn't his first goal, but it was one of his first goals, very early on.
That's when he first announced himself, I think, to the fans. But just the class he had about him. He used to win football matches on his own as well. I don't know if you remember this. I think I told you this story, John. But do you remember this one, Sim, when we were away at Bolton and we had
home at Bolton, yeah.
No, away, wasn't it? When we had
home, it was at home, yeah.
And then Berbatov was just up front on his own, and literally all we did was play the ball up front to him, lump it all the way forward.
It was.
He used to win the ball every single time in some silky fashion, and he basically won that game on his own for us.
That was one of the best individual performances I've seen in the Spurs shirt. When that game against Bolton, he was absolutely sensational that game. The way he was keeping it away from the Bolton defenders, twisting and turning away from them all by himself, setting up attacks, and it was like having an extra man up there as opposed to having a man behind, because Robbie Keane got sent off. It was absolutely incredible performance from Berbatov, and it's just a shame it ended a bit sourly with him obviously asking for a transfer and all that. But I think the silkiness, the calmness he exuded, how cool he was in front of goal, how technically gifted he was. The very few players like him come around, honestly.
I nearly put him ahead of Kane, to be honest. I actually wrote one with Berbatov at 5 and Kane 6. So that's how close. I think it's very close between Kane and Berbatov. Obviously, different. It's difficult to compare them in a sense because they're different types of strikers. But for what you're saying, Berbatov was just silky smooth, and he's just amazing to watch. Just his touch, just the way he worked with Keane. People called him lazy, but he recently came out, didn't he, and just said, "I wasn't lazy, I was smart." So that's in a recent interview came, and he was, and that's part of it,
Definitely, and he was cool as ice as well. That starting that penalty in the cup.
Oh, yeah.
And he's one of the best volleys of a football I've ever seen in a Spurs shirt. He could hit a volley like no other. Like the technique he had. Yeah, that was that overhead kick from outside the box. Incredible, unbelievable. But he scored so many volleys for Spurs. He's got such good technique from that.
But my top 5 is pretty similar to you, Sim. It really is pretty similar. But I've gone for Kane, Bale, Modric, Berbatov, and Ginola. That's my top 5. Yeah. Ledley King just missed out, I think, just because of his injury problems, and we didn't actually see prime Ledley King as often as we wanted. That was the issue. I think Ledley King would have made it if it was a top 6, probably. But that is my top 5. And I think the one with Ginola, everyone has that one player that you grow up and this is the guy that made you fall in love with football. Ginola was that guy for me. And just seeing him week in, week out, obviously I didn't go that often back then, but every time I did go, every time Ginola gets the ball, everyone in the stands just rises to their feet. What a player he was. He, again, used to win football matches on his own in a terrible team, cup runs, the goal against Barnsley, the goals against Leeds, just so many goals that we can talk about with Ginola that were absolutely out of this world. The way he used to take it past the player, slot it in the corner, volleys as well. Just what a player this guy was.
Also, so he won the Player of the Year award in the year that United won the treble.
Exactly. Think about how many good players they had then, and it still went to Ginola.
Exactly. I think the guy just oozed class. And also, when he came to Spurs, it was kind of at the end of his career as well. So he was getting on a bit when he came to Spurs, and everyone thought, it's not going to be a great signing for Spurs. But what performances he put out. And I'll never forgive George Graham for getting rid of him. Never forgive you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, good left foot and right foot. I mean, amazing player. He's third on my list for that reason, for exactly that reason. He got the ball in his own half. People would stand up in the crowd. I mean, that's not even bad. You wouldn't even get that with Bale. So
I don't know. I was going to say the only 2 people in my lifetime supporting Spurs that would happen is Bale and Ginola.
But they were different players, right? Bale is like the ultimate athlete for me, and he did like peak in that 12-13 season, and he was like banging in goals from 35 yards like all the time. Ginola was a little bit different. He would sort of slalom in between players, left foot in right, and he would actually leave about 3 more skill, and he'd leave players on their arse. That's the difference. So it was almost like more fun to watch, I think, more exciting to watch. Whereas Bale would just sort of rocket in a 35-yarder. Ginola would almost dance in between players, and so that it was nice on the eye, if you like.
It's almost like Ginola had a bit more finesse and skill about his shots as well. It was kind of like Bale would just power them in like a rocket, but Ginola would like to curl them in with a bit of finesse into the corner as opposed to Bale. So they're kind of different kind of techniques about them. But yeah, I think they are kind of different kind of players. Whereas maybe Bale was more effective, maybe Ginola was a bit more entertaining.
Yeah, and I think Ginola was more it came more naturally to Ginola, you know what I mean? Because he didn't have to work too hard for it. The guy was a smoker, for God's sake, and a heavy smoker at it. Gareth Bale, I think, obviously he had natural talent, but he had to work a lot in his physique to make him the player he was. I don't think Ginola had to work too much in that kind of aspect. I think football was very different back then as well. It didn't have that many kind of natural athletes, did it?
It's funny, like, I don't know if you remember when Ginola went to Aston Villa. I can't remember the manager at the time. He was saying he was like overweight. He needs to lose a bit of weight.
Julio.
Someone I can't remember who it was, but I remember he takes his top off and he does that and he's absolutely ripped.
Yeah.
Absolutely
George
ripped.
Called him fat or something.
Yeah, and he went like that and it was like, oh, he's just you know. Yeah.
Another player who we haven't mentioned, who I actually think could be in my top 5 now I think about it, or maybe 6th or 7th, is Mousa Dembele. Because he was an absolute beast in the centre, albeit he did not live up to his kind of the ability that he had. But what ability he had, he was absolutely sensational, especially his last 2 years or 2-3 years at Spurs. I think how long was he at us for?
From
2012, maybe.
Yeah, 2012 to 2019.
He really should have done a lot better.
Yeah, it took him a while to get going though. That's the thing. Like under AVB, he was playing within himself, and he was only really he was playing so deep back then. I was like, go push forward. He was
out of position.
There was so much more to see from him, you know. And he only really came into his game and replicated the sort of performances he was showing at Fulham in the 2015-2016 season.
Yeah, I think Poch came and proper improved his game.
Yeah.
But I think that
I think when he first came to Spurs in that first season, he was actually quite an important player. Let's not forget. I think he developed a really good partnership with Sandro. I remember, and I remember he scored some big goals. I remember Lyon away, he scored a very, very big goal. Now people were talking about him as like our next big thing. And yeah, that was a big moment for him. But then he did start to falter. He picked up a few injuries, especially in AVB's second season. He definitely started to falter a lot. We weren't sure what his best position was. Maybe it was a bit attacking. Maybe it was centre mid.
Sometimes they stuck him out on the wing.
Yeah, he played on the right wing once or twice, I remember. And then it took Pochettino's second season for him to really start. I remember it was actually a game. I think it was against Liverpool at home. I think we drew 0-0. And I think we were forced into playing him because of injuries. I think I think Dele Alli was injured or suspended or something, and we had a couple injuries in centre mid. And we were kind of forced into playing Dembele in centre mid, and he just completely ran the game. And I remember from then on, he was like, all right, Pochettino knows what he's doing with him. And he really never stopped after that until later in his Spurs career when injuries kind of caught up with him.
It was like the big games. Whenever we had a big game, prime Mousa Dembele used to win that game for us, or kind of put our foothold in the game. Nobody could get the ball off him. I remember Juventus away in Turin. That game, he was just sensational. I think Madrid as well. I think all these big games. I remember a few Arsenal games. He just bossed that midfield. Manchester United as well. The guy was an absolute beast in that middle of the park. And when he was on song, you just could not get the ball off him. You just couldn't. It was impossible. And it's no coincidence that everyone that have played with him have said he's the best player that they've played with. Even Kevin De Bruyne.
Really? Wow. I mean, I love Dembele, but for me, he's not making my top 10.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they could only because look, I've got the Linekers, I've got Modric, I've got King, I've got Keane. You know, I think Keane just edges him, to be honest, just for what he brought to the team.
Robbie Keane.
Yeah, I think he just edges it because he brought a lot to the team. And Dembele was great, you know, but for me, Robbie Keane was, you know, I would rather have Robbie Keane in my team if I had to pick two.
He was my childhood hero, Robbie Keane. He was what Ginola was to Ben, Robbie Keane was to me.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie Keane is my favourite player, I would say.
Yeah, me too.
Of all, I would say almost all time. Just we've made videos about this before. Just who he is as a character, and just everything he brought to the team, and how he strung the midfield and the attack. I love him. I love Keane. I was so devastated when he left.
He had a moment of magic. He had a bit of cheekiness to him. He was a really good finisher. Very underrated technically as well. I thought he had that partnership he had with Berbatov was some of the best football we've seen. With them two playing up front together. Yeah. I loved him so much. He showed so much passion as well. It broke my heart when he left.
Absolutely broke my heart. Broke my heart. I started dreaming about him and everything.
Yeah, and he came back and it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same when he came back.
It wasn't the same.
So you only been gone for 6 months and it still wasn't the same.
Tim, you loved him so much. When he came back, you got him on the new shirt with number 15 on the back.
Yeah, as I have to. It's Robbie Keane's back. I was so excited.
Then he changed his number a month later.
No, he did. He changed it 6 months later.
Yeah, when he came back, it was a little bit like warming up an old McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same. Yeah.
It was heartbreaking that he couldn't recapture the same player that he was, even just 6 months, and he was just not the same player.
Yeah, his heart wasn't in it. Let's be honest.
You know who we haven't spoken to about at length, who's on all 3 of our lists, is Luka Modric, because what a player he was. You know, when he first came, certain people were saying he was too small for the Premier League and he was never going to make it. Centre mid, he could never play centre mid in the Premier League. He's too small. You know, we tried him on the wing, we tried him cam, and then he finally found his home at centre mid. And what a player!
Yeah, what player! What a player!
Yeah,
he's. I mean, he's a Ballon d'Or winner, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many players have we had that's won the Ballon d'Or? I think he's the first. Is he the first one? Like as in like gone on to win it.
It's an interesting question.
I think so.
I always thought Bale was going to be that first guy to do it.
Bale never won. I can't think of any other of our players who've actually won the Ballon d'Or.
No, I don't think we've had any, actually.
We might be the first player.
So there you go. I mean, that just says it all, really, doesn't it? I mean, I would say that he was as good with us as I think he's always been the same level, Modric, to be honest with you. I don't think he's one of those players that peaks like Bale and, you know, or a Kane or some of these players that have those like explosive seasons. I think he's been a high level all the way through. He's so technically sound that it's very rare to see him have a spell where he's having a bad games. Basically, his worst game is always good. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
The king of the dummy, Luka Modric. He loves that little step.
He loves it.
He was also the outside of the foot passes was something. He makes it look so easy. He's so 2-footed as well. Left foot, right foot didn't matter to him. He used both of these. He had a good shot on him as well. Probably didn't score as many goals as probably he would have liked to, but he still had a great long shot on him. His passing was just second to none. His over-the-top passing, short passing, the way he controls things in the centre. I remember it just showed a lot that him and Huddleston could have a centre-mid partnership together and not look overrun because he did so much of the running. He likes to get stuck in as well. He's not a player who shirks from a challenge. He's not a power puff or anything like that. He is someone who's very strong in the challenge. He was such a special talent, and one that thank God we didn't let go to Chelsea. At least he went to Madrid.
Yeah, that's true.
We let him go that way, but he was one of the finest centre mids in Tottenham's history for sure.
The only one bad thing about Modric, I would say, is that he never got his shot off enough. He never shot enough because when he did, he had such a great strike on him. You remember that goal against Bolton? What a strike that was.
And Liverpool at home, what a goal that was.
You know, he scored quite a few. Do you remember that goal against Chelsea when he scored from like on the floor? That
was against Wigan,
Was that Wigan?
Yeah.
You know what the good thing about Modric's shots, right, is because he wasn't like a big guy, if you know what I mean. His shots were always very percentage, like on target. He used to hit the target a lot. You know, he wasn't one of those players who just swipe at it and would go like, row Z. Like generally, if you took a shot, it's going to be a percentage shot that's going to hit the target and make the goalkeeper work. And I think I really like that about Modric. You know, he had a good sense of weight in his foot when he took a shot, I thought.
Do you think he has such a good in football intelligence? That was all about him.
Do you think there's a case for Christian Eriksen in the top 10?
In the top 10, yes. I do.
I don't think I think maybe 10th in mine or 11th, if I'm being honest. I would still rather have Robbie Keane.
No, Eriksen. I think Eriksen is a better player than Keane.
Maybe more technical, but I think Keane brought more, in my opinion.
I love for as much as I love Robbie Keane. I think Eriksen, for that time, he was for those 3 years. When Pochettino in his second season, he was one of the best playmakers in the Premier League and even in Europe. He topped the assist chance, he topped the chances created. He was also topped the amount of goals from outside the box as well. For free kicks as well, I know he went for a long barren spell. Obviously, that he didn't score a free kick, but for free kicks,
at the beginning,
absolutely up there, up there. He was deadly for free kicks the first time, and the way he can see things like. on a football pitch that just other players can't see. The amount of times he found Dele Alli at the back post was absolutely like, without even looking, he knew where to put the ball. The amount of chance, the man was a chance creation machine. The amount of chances he created, we would spurn was time after time after time. And the only thing that lets him down, I honestly think, is that last year at Spurs, obviously he was completely, his head wasn't in it. I think that dampens people's memory of him. But I think,
but there's also other things as well. I mean, he let's be honest, he couldn't take corners. Yet he still was taking. He couldn't beat the first man. He also, and here's the thing that makes
say
the
that
difference.
he did get quite more assists than you remember from corners. He got more.
Okay,
assists
all right, but I'm just, it's like a running joke with him about that. So let's be. It can't be fake if everyone jokes about it. But I would say this, and this is the key difference with Eriksen. He never showed up in big games, and that for me is why you can't make it into.
I think that's a myth. I really
no. For me when it really counted.
Juventus away. I'm sure there's many more that you can name me, Sim, that kind of missed my memory. But I think he has played well in big games.
I think he has.
Not in the real crunch games though. I mean, you can talk about the let's say the group stage games. Okay, fair enough, against Madrid, whatever. But like I'm talking about the games where he just really needed him to show up. For me, he just always went missing in those big crunch games. When he was playing against your lesser teams, he would sort of look good. But I think that's what I would say my criticism of him is.
I agree as well.
Goals in City,
Chelsea,
United.
when we played Chelsea and we beat them 2-0, what two beautiful balls he had played for Dele Alli, headers, both goals. I think that's a myth, to be honest. I really do.
Well, if you look at the Chelsea League Cup semi-final, was it last year or the year before, season before? Totally goes missing in that game, and it was just.
You can point out games like that for anyone.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I noticed a pattern with that, but it's a game of opinions.
He played for the FA Cup semi-final to Dele Alli. That ball he played, oh my word, that's one of the best balls of all time. One of the best when we lost 4-2 to Chelsea for Dele Alli's goal. That's one of the best over-the-top balls I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Eriksen got a lot more stick than he deserved.
He also got an assist in the semi-final against Man United as well. Great assist for Dele Alli as well. I think he showed up more than you remember.
No, he showed up, but not quite to the level of the other players in my top 10 list. So
maybe.
All
right. So there you have it. That is our top five list. Top five best players to play for Tottenham in our lifetime. Let me know who your top 5 players are. Put it in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And thank you very much, Simeon and John, for joining me. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.